Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shino's Arsenal. Make sure you guys are in the comment section and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. Who's all in here? Say hello, good morning, afternoon, wherever you're watching in from. Just let me know what's going on with you. It's summertime, so we have things to talk about. We have quite a few things to get through today. Where are we going to start? England captain Leah Williamson signed a new deal with Arsenal, which is really good news. We're going to talk about Emile Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira's futures at Arsenal, as well as Ramsdale, where he could be potentially off to because Newcastle have reportedly cooled their interest on Ramsdale. And so we're going to talk about that because as much as we're all interested in who's coming in, who's leaving is also very, very important. We've had many conversations on the channel around is the bench just bad? Is the bench bad, or is Arteta not good at using the bench? And so the conversations around Fabio Vieira and Emile Smith Rowe, I think, are the most they're to me like the biggest example of, are they just bad, or is Arteta just not getting the best out of them? And so we'll talk about that and a little bit of, what the reports are saying around where they could be going, what's the likelihood of them going, this and that. And the feeling on the two of them are going to be completely different because Emile Smith Rowe is Hale End and Fabio Vieira came from Portugal. So there are emotional attachments to Emile that are not there for Fabio. And so it'll be interesting to see what you guys think about this, because if I do think at least one of them should go, but in the case that two of them do leave, Arsenal would need to go out there and bring somebody else in. More than just one midfielder. Arsenal are already looking for a midfielder. They would need to bring in two. So I think that'll also come into play on whether they get rid of one or both. Ramsdale is an interesting one because we bought him for around 25 million. And if Newcastle only want to spend 15, they can go look in a bargain bin somewhere else. We all know that they are backed by a nation state. So the fact that they don't have the money to pay is a little bit outrageous to me. But yeah, we're going to get into all of that. So make sure you guys are in the comment section. I also want to remind you guys that I mentioned this at the end of the season, or in one of our shows before the season ended, that I want to do something a little bit different for the channel than just talk about transfers. There is a large section of you guys that do tune out during the summer because you're not as into the transfer window as others, which makes a lot of sense. Like, a lot of it is just rumors and whatever. And you could just look on the website at the end of the summer and say, oh, we signed blah, blah, blah. Fine. Right. But I do want to make sure that the community is still growing and we're still hanging out with each other, because this is a part of, you guys are like my therapy. Like, if I'm not talking to you guys, I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing? So for those of you that tune out during transfers or just want to do something different than just talk about transfers, actually came up with the brilliant idea to do classic rewatches and watch along. So basically the thought process is we'll do a watch along, but with a classic match. And you're probably like, well, how are we going to watch these classic matches? A lot of them are on YouTube. Like, I remember when the COVID started and football went away, one of the things that I did, because I'm a nostalgia merchant, if you guys don't know, I was born in the 90s. 90s babies are very nostalgic, very, very nostalgic. It's a part of who we are. And so I watched a lot of classic Arsenal matches on YouTube, the full matches, and I really do enjoy it. I do think it's fun to look back at memory lane at some of the good times, the bad times, the players that were there before, and just kind of like have that moment. And so I was thinking, why not have that moment with you guys? We have been doing watch alongs on TIFO for about a couple of, like, maybe a month or two before the season ended. And so we will be doing these classic watch alongs on TIFO. And so you guys are probably like, some of you guys are like, what's TIFO? TIFO is this website that Shino's Arsenal has been working with. And so some of the watch alongs that I did throughout the season are actually below here. And the first classic watch along will be there. where it says upcoming. It'll be there as soon as you guys vote and let me know what you guys want to watch. And so I have a couple of options here that you guys can vote on. Some of you guys have already voted. Thank you guys so much for that. But the 2020 FA Cup final, the 2013-2014 third round FA Cup North London Derby, or the 2003-2004 Arsenal versus Newcastle game, which we won. So yeah, keep voting on that. So far, the Newcastle match is winning. And so what will basically happen is we'll put it on YouTube. I'll give you guys the link to it. We'll sync everybody up together. We'll all start at the same time and we'll watch it like we've never seen it before, which some of you guys probably haven't because I know some of you guys are young as hell. So there you go. But make sure you guys are voting on that. And I'll remind you guys of this before the end of the show again. And now I want to see who's all in here. Blank Face Killer says, "What's up, Jess? What's up to you?" Like, I'm excited to be here. Don't mind this mess. Like, this is called Jessica's Moving. Like, this is crazy. Like, the moving process takes months. And so there's just like bags and a printer and all kind of nonsense over here. So don't mind this. But other than the mess, I'm doing good. And I hope you're doing well too. Nico says, "Big up, Jess. Hope you're well." I am well. I hope you're good as well. Well. We're saying a lot of well. Blaze says, "Hi, Jess. How are you doing?" I am good. C. Wilder says, "What's up, Jess?" What's up to you as well. Akin says, "Hello, Jess. Who had a better season, Man U or Arsenal?" Arsenal had a better season. This is funny just because like I actually went back and looked at some of the people that like were saying that Man United had a better season and look back at what they were saying when we won the FA Cup and when we finished 8th. And let's just say their opinions have changed vastly since then. Nobody believes that Man United had a better season. But if you do, fair enough. Errol says, "Hi, Jess. Well, do you as well." Neil says, "I'm really interested to see how Arsenal sell. We have to start doing better with player sales." We have spoken about this so much on the channel, and I will never, until Edu beats the allegations, he will always be a bad seller. Like, he will always be a bad seller. And it's not just him, it's the entire transfer team. But, in years gone past, summer windows gone past, it's always been these players aren't worth anything. They're not any good. They're this, they're that. I hear that, but now we have players with true value. Maybe not a lot of value, but we're definitely not talking about Kolasinac and Mustafi and Socrates anymore. We're talking about Sambi, who played like a full season with Luton and did well. We're talking about Emile Smith Rowe, who's English and talented. We're talking about Ramsdale, who's also English and talented and young. So these players should not be getting pennies. And if we are getting pennies, then we're going to be bitching a gun. Nocturnal Gunner says, "Brilliant idea." Brilliant idea, exactly. Don't try me. Playa says, "Whoever generates more interest will be sold, so buy ESR." Joel says, "Thanks for mentioning the mess. I could not unsee it." Listen, I can't, listen, until this bed is gone, that mess will probably be there. But I've got some hangers. I have a little dresser coming. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm not going to say by the next time that you guys see me, that will be gone, but we're working on it. Jagoon says, "I'm 2 years old and I can confirm I haven't seen the 2020 final. So vote for it so that we can all watch it together." Matt G says, "Hey, Jess in chat." Let's see. Shamaria. I hope it's Shamaria. Because every time I look at it, I see Shamaria or Shamaria. I think it's maybe Shamaria. That's what I'm going to go with. That narrative is so boring. It's always our season they want to compare to. It's everything that they want to compare to. It's anytime that they have a half-decent attacker, it's Saka. Anytime that they win something, it's they had a better season. Now you see Chelsea trying to have their own Arteta project, bringing in this Enzo guy from Leicester. It's wild. Blue says, "Hello, Jess. Love the new logo." Thank you. I appreciate that. And let's see. And Matt G says, I think us fans need to manage our expectations when it comes to players' value this summer. I'm seeing a lot of people thinking we're going to get 50 million for ESR. Not a chance. We're not. Like, we're not getting 50 million, and we will chat. We will chat about that. But first, I do want to start off with a little bit of Arsenal women news. I did see that somebody was in the chat saying, "Who is Leah? Who is Leah's who?" Please. You need to go Google Leah Williamson, because she is, like, quite literally the biggest gooner. She is the England captain, and one of the biggest parts of Arsenal's women's team. She's been a gooner her whole entire life. She's a fantastic player, a really good center back, also plays midfield, and she has signed a new deal for Arsenal. And so that is massive news for the women's team, who, if you guys haven't been paying attention, the women's team are massively successful, but have went through a pretty difficult season the last 2 seasons, if we're honest. It hasn't been that great. I mean, we won the Conti Cup, but that's kind of like the equivalent of winning the Carabao Cup. And for a team of Arsenal stature, that is not good enough. And they finished third, which they will be in the Champions League qualification rounds, but it's not automatic qualification. And again, if you were not paying attention, I will get you up to speed. Arsenal women did not end up getting through that qualifying round to get into the Champions League. They went out of the qualifying rounds to Paris FC, which was very damaging for the entire season. Then we went on not to be very good in the league, and we just won the Conti Cups. So it's been difficult for Arsenal women, but this is probably the best news that has come out of the Arsenal women, for a couple of months, because Arsenal had just announced a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, that Viviana Miedema, who's the GOAT of the game, is not going to be at Arsenal next season. She's leaving on a free. They did not offer a new contract, and she'll probably be at a rival. And so we need some good news quickly. And Leah Williamson signing a new deal is very good news. Stina Blackstenia signing a new deal is very good news. Do they need to go out there and get into the transfer window and be aggressive? Absolutely, because right now we are behind Chelsea, and we could be potentially behind Manchester City. So it's super important. But yeah, Leah Williamson has signed a new deal, which is excellent news. And they didn't say specifically like how long it is, but I was reading from somebody who like reports on Arsenal women that it's multiple years. So it's not just 1 year, it's multiple years, which is perfect. It's an interesting little paragraph that since Leah's association with Arsenal began 19 years ago, our center back and vice captain has helped us win 1 Barclays Women's Super League title, 4 FA Women's Continental League Cups, and 2 Women's FA Cups. In that time, Leah has made 232 appearances for Arsenal, scoring 15 goals. Leah is also the captain of the Lionesses, and having led the side to the UEFA Euros Championship in 2022. So Leah is a captain. She is a fantastic footballer, super technical. She's fantastic. She really, really is. So this is really good news. And yeah, we're lucky to have her, and hopefully Jonas knows that as well. So that is massive news for us. TBG says, big up Jess. Blaze says, why Arsenal didn't give a new contract to Miedema. I don't know. The whole like women's football world was very shocked that she was not offered a new deal. And I think also even Viv is only 27. Leah and Viv are the same age. Viv still has many years to go. She has suffered some big injuries, so that comes into play. But Arsenal women realistically are not going to be able to find somebody on the market of her level. And so to not keep her, or at least try to keep her, is very strange. And a lot of people made that known. And so, yeah, I'm not quite sure why they did not do it. But yeah, it sucks. It really does. Matthew says, sad news, Viv is leaving. It is sad. Junior says, hey, Gooners. And Astro Dooley says they've had a bust up. No. I mean, I've seen this and that, and nothing has really been confirmed. Like the rumor mill is the rumor mill, but I don't think that they have the best relationship, Viv and Jonas. But that's literally just me making assumptions. Clement says Miedema leaving the club was shocking. The club should have offered Miedema at least a 1-year contract. If she says no, move on to someone similar to Miedema. The thing is, Clement, is there is nobody similar to Miedema. She's kind of like that Van Persie profile, and if you've watched Van Persie play, you know that that's very much so a unicorn. So they must have really big hopes and dreams for Russo, which Russo was a massive signing for us in the last summer, and they've re-signed Blackstenius. But one thing that Arsenal women really do lack is world-class quality and speed. And there's no speed on the wings. And losing Miedema, you lose some of your world-class quality. I would say the only other 2 players that I would consider world-class in that team is probably Leah and Beth Mead. No one else. So there you go. So I don't know how they're going to replace that level of player. I really don't. Let's see. Blankface Killer says Van Persie types are one in a million. And Gunnarola says, is Viv going to Man City? That's the rumor out there. And so, yeah, we will see how this all plays out. But nevertheless, this is very, very good news for Arsenal women. And I'm excited to watch Leah play more football for us. So, yeah. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff, and getting into the chat, letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. This is my show, but it's also yours as well. And we are going to move kind of to the next subject, which I feel like we're probably going to talk about the most, which is Emile Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira, but I split it into 2 because the situations are very different. Let's start with Emile Smith Rowe. So this is coming from Charles Watts. You guys, if you guys have been paying attention the last couple of days, you've probably already seen this quote, but Charles Watts on his show, I think it's like Inside Arsenal or Arsenal Inside or something like that. He was saying, talking about Emile Smith Rowe, and he said that we're talking about Emile Smith Rowe potentially leaving. As much as I don't want Emile to go, I still think the most likely outcome is that he does go. From conversations I've had, from the lack of game time he's had, if he's not getting those opportunities, it feels like the most likely option for both parties is that he is going to go. And so, I know midway through the season, Arteta had said something, that Emile Smith Rowe was a part of the plans. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that, like, Arteta really likes Emile. I don't think that he dislikes Emile. But I do wonder if maybe the powers that be, some of the other people that are involved in transfers may be looking at Emile as an opportunity to maybe make a profit. Emile's sale would be pure profit. So there's an opportunity there. And, it's a tough one with Emile, because I know that being a Highlander and then also being tied to the beginning of what we would call this new project, where in like December of like the dark year where we had lost like 8 in a row or something like that, Emile and Saka, as if they came out of nowhere and just like saved the season and were playing good football with Tierney, and it was just like great. And then the next season he did even better and scored those 10 goals, and we won North London Derby with one of his goals. Like, there's just so many things, like so many memories, I think, of this new project that are intertwined with Saka and Emile Smith Rowe, the song and everything. He's the number 10. But in the last 2 seasons, he really has not played a lot of football. And whether that's been through injuries or just not being chosen, I do think it's hard to look back at 2021 and not kind of pack it into a box, like for me personally, and say that was something that happened before. This is the reality of what we're dealing with now. And between him and Fabio Vieira, who we'll talk about in a little bit, they don't contribute enough in the moments when they do get time But then you can also make the argument that if they got more playing time, maybe they would contribute more. And that's something that I don't think we'll ever know, is if Fabio Vieira and Emile were to leave, we wouldn't really have the ability to be like, well, if he had gotten this playing time, he would have done this. Now, I know that some people will say, well, you saw him with a lot of playing time. This is how he would have played. But genuinely, you guys, like in 2021, we played so much differently than how we play now. Really, the beginning of this Arsenal, the title challenging Arsenal, not top four contending Arsenal, but challenging Arsenal, began when we bought Zinchenko and Jesus. That football that we started playing with when Saliba came back and we bought those two is completely different than how we played back then. And really, once Odegaard came in, everything changed. So Emile's breakout season happened prior to us playing this football. So we really don't know what it would be like if Emile got that playing time. We don't know what it would be like if Fabio Vieira got that playing time. Depending on how much you like the player, you can always make an argument that if they just got playing time, if they just got 4 or 5 games in a row, if they just played in this right position, if they just played with this other player, that this would happen. But we don't actually know. And so it could be the case that those players leave and we just never really get that answer. My concern is not really so much of whether they stay, or like if they stay, they need to play and contribute. But if we were to sell, the fee is just really important, and replacing is really important. I feel, even though I do rate Fabio Vieira and Emile, like I know people think I hate Emile. I don't hate Emile, but if you were to replace the two of them with Xavi Simons, you could actually see where just one player could be a lot more impactful to this side than two players that can only kind of play in certain circumstances, don't quite fit, don't quite have this, don't quite have that. And so maybe it's a matter of figuring out a way where we can consolidate a couple of these players, which sounds bad because they're people and it's like consolidate. You do that with like, numbers or factory items or something like that. But genuinely, if you were to combine or get rid of both of them, if not one of them, and replace them with somebody that actually can contribute a lot more, we'd be a lot better off. We have a very bloated squad. We have a bunch of midfielders, but only like 3 of them really work all the time. And so it's, it might just be time, but Emile is such a tough one, because of the emotional attachment, he really is. Nostradamus says ESR 13 Premier League appearances and an unused sub for 18 games, just 7 games missed through injury, which goes back to the point that it's not just him being injured. Like mostly last season was him being injured. This season, there's been stretches of time where he's been fit and Arteta just hasn't used him. Do I blame him? We were under pressure in a title race, but at the same time, I do feel like when you're winning that stretch of games, like, because I really want to go back and look at that stretch of games where we were winning 4-0, 5-0, 6-0. That was like an 8-game period, and we were winning by multiples. And Odegaard and Saka and these guys still played 90 minutes. And so I think that speaks volumes, is that if you're winning by that many goals and you still don't use Emile or Fabio or Reese or Nketiah, I just think that speaks volumes about how you feel about the player, that you weren't even like willing to give, like you'd rather use Odegaard and Saka and these guys for 20 minutes extra instead of giving that break. Like genuinely during that time, you could have taken about 90 to 100 minutes off of the legs of some of our starters just by giving those other guys minutes. And so I think that says a lot. Matt G says, I'll be sad when ESR leaves, but I think it's his time and best for his career. If he wants to get back into the England squad, he needs to leave, which is, y'all remember when Emile was in the England squad? Like, that's how far gone, like this has like, it's gone so far that he was probably called up maybe 2 years ago and he's back in the under 21s. And yeah, like if he does want to get his career back on track, he will need to leave Arsenal. I just don't see how he does it at Arsenal. But that's the other part of it, is that I know that there's a lot of Arsenal fans that don't want to see his career kick off somewhere else. And so the key is always in the replacing. Losing good players to other teams, and selling them down the Premier League table doesn't hurt if you get better in the process. But if we stagnate and we don't replace well, or we don't replace at all, and then Emile is, let's just say, just for this, because this is the scenario that I know people don't want, Emile is running around at Villa Park playing well for Unai Emery, people will have a heart attack, so it's all about that. It's all about that. It's all about that. Nocturnal Gunner says it's time for us to let Emile go, no matter how much we love him, for his own development. Wake Up Mind says we sold Willock without giving him any playing time. Probably Arteta want to try a little bit more and see, since they are young. Willock is a very interesting one, because the only time I ever hear about Willock being the answer is when we're not playing well, which, to be honest, I do feel like Willock is like a stick to beat Arteta with. No one really fucked with Willock like that. Like, they liked him, but he was never considered one of the more talented or the more coveted. Like, it was all Emile and Saka. Now, all of a sudden, because he's playing well at Newcastle, which Newcastle are not as good as us. Newcastle are not, they haven't challenged for a title. Like, they're not on the, he would have been perfect. Willock would have never been perfect. And if you've really been paying attention to Newcastle, which I know some of you guys haven't, or you just ignored it, Willock has been injured a lot since being at Newcastle. Now, everybody's injured at Newcastle, but all I'm saying is that maybe it was just the right thing to do. 25 million for Willock is very good business. And that leads me to the next part of this conversation, is how much do you sell him for? Because Emile hasn't played that much, so this 40, 50 million that Matt was talking about earlier is really out of the question. That was Matt was saying that earlier, that like 40 million is outrageous for Emile, and we're never going to get that. But equally, 10 million is also outrageous. I feel like you have to be in the 20 million range at least, because that's what anybody else would get for Emile. I just wonder if he's been frozen out so much that people will be like, well, you don't want him anyway. It's not like you're going to play him. So if he's that useless to you, why would I pay more than, it's simple, like sales. Like, I'm not a salesperson, but if I go into a store that's a discount store or something like that, things that people are trying to get rid of, and they have astronomical prices, I'm going to question that. I'm going to be like, well, you don't even want this shit, so why would I pay a lot? And so that, I feel like, is the part of the dance, the selling dance, that we don't quite have good enough yet, is we make it really obvious that we don't want this player anymore by not playing them and icing them out. And then when we ask for what we feel like they're worth, the teams are like, well, you're trying to get rid of him, so why would I pay a lot? And so then we end up just giving them away, right? And so that is why I'm looking at Edu like, are we going to get the dance right this time? Are we going to get the dance right? Or are we going to be playing with two left, or we're going to be dancing with two left feet again, where we're bumbling all over our feet and falling all over the place and not dancing to the rhythm, So it's going to be a very, very interesting summer for Emile Smith Rowe, but also we're going to have to sell him to a Premier League side. And so there is like a very good chance that we will sell Emile to somebody that we don't want to see him play for. I would love to sell him to Wolves. I don't care about Wolves, but the likelihood is that he'll end up at a West Ham, or he'll end up at Aston Villa. And we're just going to have to hold that, because if we do what we're supposed to be doing, Emile doing well at Villa won't mean shit, because we will have done what we need to do. And that's kind of where I'm at, with Emile. Jagoon says we need to start demanding higher fees for our unwanted players. Nostradamus says ESR should just be loaned out. His value will rise, contract expiring in 2026. Arcus says Brighton were willing to pay 20 million for Reece. I am pretty certain we'll get more than 25 million for ESR. That's another thing as well. Selling when we should be selling. We should have sold Reece Nelson for the 15 million to Brighton. There's times where people offer us good money, and it's like, yeah, like, what was the point of keeping Reece this season? I'm not even trying to be shady. The Bournemouth goal, yes, it will live on for eternity. Like, so I know that's some people's favorite fucking memory, but it's just a memory. Like, he quite literally did not contribute at all this season. What, he scored like a goal against Luton, maybe? Like, we should have taken the 15 million. I don't know why he's still here. Mattis says, I feel like our buying and selling won't improve until we get a new team in that department. Hopefully we'll sort it out. Wake Up Mind says, if we sell ESR to Aston Villa, we would be doing what City did to us, selling our players to them. I mean, look at Emi Martinez. I mean, but it worked out for City. The thing with the City, as much as I know we hate them and they're really getting on our nerves, right? But let's just think about this for a second. Pep said it when they sold Cole Palmer to Chelsea, that you have to get really comfortable selling good players to other Premier League sides, because that's the only way that you're going to get a good fee for them. Premier League clubs can buy from other Premier League clubs, but that requires a level of security that we don't have yet. You know, I think the fans are very insecure about selling players to other teams, because if they score a goal or whatever, they don't want to hear the banter, right? As Emile would do well somewhere else where he's getting more playing time and they're playing a different style of play and all that kind of stuff. It will happen, you know. But does City give a shit that Cole Palmer went to Chelsea and was almost like player of the year or something like that, and like young player of the season and scored 20-something goals? They don't give a fuck, because they won the Premier League. They don't care. Like, they don't care. And they got 50 million for a player that was not willing to wait. And so the key is always to make sure that, like, while you're selling, you're improving and you're not damaging yourself. I don't think selling ESR to Aston Villa is going to damage us. It's not like losing a player that without them, you will not survive. It's just about getting the right fee and replacing with somebody that's going to help us become better. And that's all we just have to get that right. We just have to get that right. Christopher says, hard to sell when it gets to the point that we no longer value the players. Got to sell when stock is high. We always, like, our best sale like was Willock and Balogun. We got 30 million or something for Balogun. We got 25 million for Willock. Two players that, well, they were different. People were acting like we couldn't sell Balogun. Do you guys see what Balogun's done at Monaco? Do you guys watch it? He hasn't done shit. Like, he really hasn't done anything. So selling him when we did was perfect, because it was before it was obvious to sell him. Willock as well. It wasn't obvious that we sell Willock. You know, it was like it almost came too quickly, and we got the 25 million and we went off like a bandit in the night. Like, we robbed them. Like, that was perfect. They love Willock and that's fine, but like, we haven't missed Willock at all, right? What we tend to do now is wait. Like, we should have sold Reece Nelson for the 15 million. Wait. So who knows what we'll get for Emile, but we probably should have sold him the summer prior, if we're honest. We didn't. Yo-Yo says transfer policy isn't dictated by the fans. Few wanted Kai and Raya. It's on Arteta and Edu. Tawanda says ESR needs to leave for a sake. I think Arteta has changed the style to a point where ESR is no longer needed. And TBG says we should get good money for Micah Bareth. Yeah, he's done well, and he's an obvious one to sell as well. You know, good season in the Austrian Bundesliga, right? They won the Bundesliga, Austrian Bundesliga. He scored a lot of goals. He's an obvious one to sell. He's obvious. Like, he's not going to play in the first team. I know some people go, oh my God, but he could be. He won't be. He won't be. When we get to the point where we realize that probably once every 8 to 10 years, you'll get somebody that's good enough to be in our first team and actually really crack into the starting 11. The sooner we realize that, the better. The sooner we realize that, the better. You know, you have your Tony Adams, and then you have your Ashley Cole, and, you know, you buy somebody and stick them in your academy like Cesc, and, you know, then you have a Jack Wilshere, and then, you know, then it takes forever, and then you have a Saka, and it's only like one or two max. Like, the idea that all of these guys are good enough, it's not going to happen, you know? So that also reminds me that one of them Fabio Vieira or Emile needs to open up a spot for Ethan Aweri, because there's no point in giving him this monster like professional contract and making this big deal out of him and keeping him if we're not going to integrate him next season. And when I say integrated, I'm saying give him some fucking minutes. Like in preseason, while other people are recuperating from the Euros, he should be playing those games. And so Ethan Aweri needs a spot. And that attacking midfielder winger spot can only be opened up by Fabio Vieira or Emile leaving. And so it's time. Like it really, really is time to like move one, if not both of them on. Blaze says, Jess, you're right. If Arsenal will win the league next season, everyone will forget about ESR. If we will go and play better at the new team, some of our fan base are just insecure. It is an insecurity, but it just always becomes like, and we should like, if you always will bring it up, like the way that we still see people bringing up Aubameyang and Pepe and people like that, like where it was kind of like we needed to move them on, but we just had like, as long as we're not winning, it'll always be something where you can like, and you didn't keep Aubameyang, but, and Emile will be the same. But if you use like, if you actually are like being honest, a lot of those players needed to be moved on, and some of the players now need to be moved on. Even if we don't win the Premier League, them leaving or staying is not going to be the reason why we didn't do it. Like we didn't not win the Premier League this season because we sold Aubameyang 2 years ago. Like that's not really what it is. And that's just how I think about it. But maybe some people feel differently. Yo-Yo says, if Fabio is sold for less than what he signed for, then I'm washing my hands if I do. I feel like you already did. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I don't think I've ever heard you say a nice word about Edu. Like, honestly, I think it's like, were you ever with him? Like, Wanda says, Noweri and Kosier Dewberry need games. They need to be loaned out. I think Noweri should stay in the first team, if I'm honest. Blankface Killer says more like because we didn't replace him. Fair enough. And Wicked Mind says Edu needs to help selling players. Someone has to take care of selling so Edu can recruit stress-free. It's like we have Tim Lewis or Richard Garlick. I don't know which one does what. One of them is like a lawyer and the other one, I don't know. But you know who needs to get to work? Did we not get Real Madrid's recruitment person that goes into Brazil and goes and finds gems? Where's that guy? What happened to that guy? I need that guy to start working. Y'all don't get me started on Marquinhos. Don't get me started on Marquinhos, because I can go on for days about the fact that we ended up with Marquinhos when we could have been getting Gustavo and these guys. Like, what's going on? TBG says Paulo Xavier. Yeah. Go get somebody. Like, so yeah. Let's see. So yeah. Tashima says Vieira is only worth 15 million. Now let's actually talk about Vieira, because unlike Emile, I think a lot of people would like to see the back of Vieira. Like, they're not feeling him. And I get it, because he's not one of us. But y'all know I never sold my stocks, so I'm not the right person to talk to about Fabio Vieira and how much people hate him and all this, or dislike him or think he's crap. Like, I'm not the one to talk about, because I held my stocks and I'm still holding on to them because I think there's a quality player there. But I could see him leaving. And this is also like why I practice what I preach. Like, if I can see moving on both Emile and Fabio Vieira. Even if I like Fabio and I think he's talented, I do think that if Arteta's not going to use him, that there's a reason for it that I may not be able to see. But equally, like, there could be another player that we could bring in that will help us a lot more. And I'd rather do that than just hold on to somebody he's not going to use. I don't want people just around for the sake of it. We need, like, idealistically, Arsenal need to bring in the Xhaka replacement that we never bought. Somebody that can also, like, simultaneously replace Xhaka and Partey at the same time. That's what you need. Xhaka, Partey replacement to play with Rice and Odegaard. That's what you need. But we also lack another really talented midfielder off the bench that adds a little bit more creativity. That's supposed to be Fabio Vieira and Emile, but neither one of them are really doing it. So, like, really, Arsenal should be looking to bring in two midfielders, but we'll probably only get one. And that's probably because we'll only get rid of one of Emile or Fabio. But Fabio Vieira could leave due to lack of game time. This is coming from Fabrizio Romano. He says it's been reported that Fabio Vieira could leave after a lack of playing time. My understanding, however, is that it depends on proposals. So far, it's quiet. But for players like Vieira, there's a chance to leave in case of a good proposal coming in. We just have to be patient on that one. And so what that says to me is that they're open to letting him go depending on what comes in. He's not somebody that they're like desperate to sell, but I feel like he might be in that same category as maybe like Zinchenko, where it's like, I'm not actively trying to get rid of you, but if somebody offers me something good, I'll kick you out the door. Like, I feel like that's kind of where they're at with Fabio Vieira. Will a bunch of proposals come in for somebody who hasn't played in 2 years? I don't know. I really don't know what the market would be like for Fabio Vieira. It'd probably be outside of England, if we're honest. It'll be back in Portugal or Spain or France or something like that. So, and those teams don't have money. So it would most likely be a loan, I think. But Fabio is probably not going to sit around and not play. He doesn't strike me as somebody that's down for the long haul, like Reece and Emile. If nobody kicked them out, they would stay here forever. But Fabio, he's not Hale End. He's not really connected to the club in any sort of way. He came in randomly 2 summers ago and has yet to really break through. This is somebody who was like the young player of the under 21 Euros or something like that. Like, he is a talented player that could play somewhere else. And I don't think he's just going to sit around on Arsenal's bench for the sake of it. So I could see him maybe not pushing, but being open to going somewhere where he's going to get more playing time. And the club also should be open because he's somebody that does not get playing time. He doesn't play. And so, yeah, like I can see this. I can see this. But again, if you let Emile and Fabio go, that player needs to be replaced. You can't be going into next season with just Rice and Odegaard and Jorginho left from the group that you had. Also, we haven't really gone over it, and we don't really need to. Thomas Partey, they're saying that he's gone. So Partey out, Emile out, Fabio out. At least 2 midfielders need to come in to replace that. And I just don't think Arsenal will be wanting to do that because it's a lot of work. You still need to bring in an attacker. You still need to bring in a defender. To bring in 2 midfielders feels like there's a lot on Arsenal's plate there. So, yeah, Vieira would go down as a flop, unfortunately, if he were to leave, and I would have to hold that L. But there's still a chance that I could see him staying, just for the simple fact, not so much that Arteta and Edu think he's the best thing in the world, but just mostly due to not wanting to do any extra work because they already have a lot to do as it is. So, yeah, Tawanda says Sammy Lokonga should go as well. Fabio Vieira, perfect for Serie A. Tawanda says Paquetá is about to be banned, guys. Let's see. Ricky says the players should not stay if Arteta doesn't play them, but don't expect Arsenal to win while going whole seasons without specialists playing in their positions, wearing his starters out. Zich says, don't worry, Sambi Lokonga is coming back. I'll talk about Lokonga. It's hilarious. Nostradamus says, Marseille are basically our lone team in France. He should go there now. They were interested in him before, so maybe they'll come back for him. Let's see. Jagoon says he is talented for sure, but there's just something missing. Wake Up Mind says he was compared to Vitinha. Sadly, one is good and Fabio isn't yet. What will be interesting is to see him in a different league playing consistently. That's what Vitinha got that Fabio Vieira did not. Vitinha plays for the most dominant team in France and plays consistently every week, where Vieira doesn't play consistently and plays in a completely different setup. So I would be very interested to see Vieira at like a Marseille or something like that and see if he's actually, I would put money on it that he bangs somewhere else. Like I really would. He's good. Like, and it's just like watching Vitinha get the flowers that he definitely deserves, of Champions League performances and Arsenal fans, this being the first time that they've ever seen Vitinha in their lifetime, watching him play and then using it as a stick to beat Fabio Vieira without using the context of different league, different setup, different everything. And they also never watched the games where Vitinha needed to get up to speed even at PSG. He didn't just start playing like that from minute one. He had to grow into that. But listen, I would put money that he would bang somewhere else. But, Arsenal, that's a lot of money to spend on somebody who Arteta didn't even trust enough to give like a real run of games. Like that has to go down as a failed signing. Like it just has to if he leaves, So yeah. Ian says, imagine thinking you would get Isak for 90 million. I think both of you guys are Newcastle fans, Foxy and Ian McKenna, yeah? Both of you guys are Newcastle fans. Were you guys convinced by Bruno Guimaraes kissing the badge the other day? Are you guys worried that he was crying at the end of the season? You guys worried about that? Might start getting worried. I want to start getting worried. Maybe not Isak, but Bruno Guimaraes, he may be coming to us. Yolanda says, it would be sad if Vieira left. Our mini Bernardo Silva. Yo-Yo says, Fabio and ESR needed to be developed as they are both young prospects. Their departures would be as much of a failure on the club as on the players. Fair enough. Fair enough. And Vieira, like, if you ever watched him play anywhere else, like, he really is like a number 10 at heart. And he is the type of number 10 that can play out on the wing. But the way that we play with our wingers, it's the same reason why people get upset about, Martinelli and Saka. They don't get freedom and they're always on the touchline. That is not the ideal scenario for a number 10 playing on the wing. They need to be closer to other people. They need to be able to float and find their way back into that 10 position. We don't play with a number 10. Even Odegaard doesn't play like a number 10. He has to play deeper and play more like like just a midfielder. And that's just not Vieira's bag. And so if he can't pop up in other places and kind of like be creative and find that final pass, he's very useless to us. And we play in such like a system where everybody's in their spot, kind of nailed in it. He's just done, So I do think that like Vieira would probably I would love to see him get the playing time and have the freedom, but he's not going to get that. Even our best player, our most important player, Saka, doesn't get it. So Fabio Vieira is definitely not getting it. So it's maybe time to move him on. Both. Van says Bruno does fit the culture here. Does not fit the culture here at all. Def not coming. What is the culture? What is the culture? Like, what are Arteta's non-negotiables? Like, his non-negotiables are not, don't hit Georgie over the head when you're on the opposite team. Like, what do you mean he doesn't fit the culture? Like, does he work hard? Is he professional? Does he play for the badge? Like, those are the non-negotiables. Like, not he hit Jorginho over the head. Like, come on, you guys. Tashima says City might go for Bruno G after the Paquetá situation. They could. They definitely could. And see. I'm just looking for people that haven't commented in a while because I kind of do the same people. DJ says, these players we try to hold on to are not good enough. Holding couldn't get a game at Palace. Fabio should go Saudi. No, he should just go to another European side, I think. Wake Up Mind says, both ESR and Fabio are 23. If we can't develop them now, when would be a good time? We buy ready-made players. Who are we developing? Well, again, that is a rabbit hole that we unfortunately don't have time to go down. But we've had these conversations several times about development. People will say, of course, Arteta develops players well. But I tend to disagree. I don't think that he develops players well. People say, well, what do you think happened with Saka and Martinelli? He developed them. There's a big difference between players that are going to be starting day in and day out and that were already in the team pre Arteta. Both of those players were both in the team around Unai when Unai Emery was there, versus players like Vieira or Sambi, who come from other places that are around 22 years old, 21, 22 years old, that aren't really going to be in the starting 11, but he doesn't trust them to let them have those runs of games where they fuck up. And it's hard to develop new players in situations where you're under massive pressure all the time. So what ends up happening is you don't see them at all during the league because they're not trusted. And then the one time that you see them is in a really heavily rotated side against somebody in a cup. And then when they don't do well, then they're back on the bench. I don't think Arteta develops players well outside of the starting 11 or players that have already been involved. And most of the players that we bought that are even younger have played loads of football. They played loads and loads of football. Ben White came in when he was like, 24? Loads of football. Odegaard, loads of football, has been a professional since he was 16. So it's not like Fabio Vieira and Sambi had just kind of like broken through. Fabio Vieira had just come out of the academy 6 months before we bought him. So there are differences. Like, I do think if we buy younger players, they have to have played a lot of football. They just have to. And the only development that needs to happen is for them to develop into players that can play in our system, not players that need to become players, players that need to become players. Like, he can't do it because there's just too many other things to do. You have to win every single week. It's just a lot, so maybe somebody that's young, like, we're not going to get him, but like an example would be like a Xavi Simons. He's somebody that's been playing quite a bit of football for a long time. So you don't have to like deal with the newness of being a professional and all that kind of stuff when playing in like a top European league. Like, because both Sambi and Fabio both came from leagues outside of the top 5 leagues, right? You just get somebody that needs to learn how to play our system. And I feel like that's the cutoff. Arteta needs to either buy ready-made players that are ready to go or younger players that have played a shit ton of football. That's it. Like, that's it. Junior says Bruno Guimaraes would be perfect for Arsenal in my opinion. Blaze says we don't need a developing player. We need world-class players, forwards who can help us win the league and take Arsenal to the next level. Zich says Arteta does not develop well. At the same time, if we bring in someone from the bench and we don't win that game, then the title challenge is over. And that is another stick to beat Arteta with. But I guess it feels like if you have created an environment where if one player is out, the whole like house of cards will fall, then how strong is what you've built? What we've built is very fragile and is still built on 13-ish players. Maybe we've extended it to 14, because it's one of the left backs is always kind of out, but when you rotate them, it's usually okay. And then Trossard and Jorginho, but Jorginho was damn near a starter. So it's like 13, 14 players that this house is built on. If you take any of those out, the whole house of cards falls. To me, that's not a very strong environment. It's not a winning environment, because if Saka, who we saw what it was like without him against Everton, it was struggling. It was really like. So I do think that, like, I understand that aspect of things where he can't risk it because we're in the title race, but equally we need to figure out a way to be able to bring in other players. And we still gave way more minutes to our starting 11 than City did. We had that same data from last season where we're using 13 players and that's it, while they were rotating a bunch of other players and they could stay fresher. That's also how you maintain levels in every competition. I think another reason why we don't get further in the cups is because as soon as we get an opportunity to rest, it's the cups. And so we rest everyone because this is the only chance we're going to get. And that heavily rotated side is so shit that it just can't, it's so disjointed. It's so, the players are just not motivated. They're on the outskirts of the side. It's like, it's too much. And so I get that. But we're 2 years into a title run where we've used 13 players like a bar of soap, and we've come out with the same result, and also still feeling like, can we trust the bench? And so it's something that he needs to like really think about fixing. It can't just be something that we continue to do. And maybe it is the case that we have to stop holding on to players that you don't trust and bring in quality players that will be on the bench or will actually challenge the starting 11. And you feel confident that they can come in, like the Trossards, like the Jorginhos, like the Tommies, you know? And we would really do well to have some of those players be further forward, another attacker that can do that, another like an attacking midfielder that can do that, because those are kind of the positions where, like, if Saka can't play, we're fucked. If Odegaard can't play, we're fucked. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I get if the title race was on the line, but he had the whole past season to have that data read. Like, he had that. We knew that. We've done the same thing this season. So it's kind of like doing the same thing over and over again and wanting different results. You're not going to get it. So, yeah. Nostradamus says Wilfred Ndidi is a free agent this summer. Perfect man for number 6 over the season to nail down the position. Ciao. Not Ndidi. Listen, if that's who you want, that's who you want. But I think we can do, like, I would rather, instead of getting Ndidi, I'd rather get Fofana from Monaco. Like, he's going to cost like what, 18, 20 million. Just go get him. He's much better player and he's not as injury prone. Ndidi, I may have forgotten a lot of things about Leicester, but one thing I did not forget is that guy loves a medical table. Okay. Keenan says neither Rice nor Paqueta are ideal for left center mid. If we play them in the same midfield, I don't think we will win the league this coming season. Well, we're not getting Paqueta, so yeah. Nuance to the Fate says the fact that we went through the whole season without injuries to Saliba and Gabriel means this is a house of cards that luck can't hold. Well, I don't think we really hear me out. I do think that we had a little bit of luck with injuries, that we didn't get any major injuries to the players that, we can't live without. I mean, we still kind of did. Like, I mean, there was a period of time where like Odegaard was injured or whatever, and he was out for like a game or two, and we didn't do well in either one of those games. We lost to Newcastle. One of that game was hard to watch. But Saliba wasn't out. Saka wasn't out that much. I think Saka may have missed like 1 or 2 games, So we were kind of lucky in that. I do think the way that we play helps that, because we don't do the basketball game. And I think the teams that play basketball, like the Newcastles, like the Manchester Uniteds, they get more injuries because they have players that can't really play that style all season, that have to end up playing it all season. So I think we help ourselves in that way. But we won't always get that lucky. There will be another Saliba injury or, something like that that will kind of rock us. And we don't really have the ability to change as much as I feel like we should and still maintain a certain level. Will it ever be City's level of being able to chop and change and kind of keep the same levels? Probably not. But do I think we can improve on it? Yes. Do I think we should be so rigid? No. So I do think there's been a little bit of luck. I think the way that we play comes together and makes sure that we don't get as many injuries, but that doesn't mean next season we'll have that same luck. We were a lot more defensive this season than we were the season prior, so Gabriel and Saliba didn't have to do as much last-ditch defending. And I think that last-ditch defending is how you get those strains. And, it's just, yeah. So we'll see how we do. I see so many Ndidis. I still like Tagoon says, Ndidi, please don't do that again. Nico says, Ndidi. Easy says Ndidi. Highbury also says Ndidi in 2024. Maggie says Ndidi is not for me. Yeah, Keenan says Ndidi was good like 5 years ago. Matt is playing FIFA 19. Listen, we're not trying to cook you or anything like that, but like Ndidi is, I can't. Like, not today. I really can't. So yeah. And last but not least, I do want to talk about Ramsdale. Because Newcastle have said to have cooled their interest on Ramsdale, which I think is interesting because it's like, you back by Nation State. Why can't you pay? Like, where's your money? Where are your gold bars? Like, what's going on? You should have some cash, but you also, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to Newcastle. The people in the chat that are Newcastle fans, you guys can probably give some more insight on this, but the fact that Newcastle went out and got working on getting 2 free center backs, Lloyd Kelly and Tosin Adarabioyo, I do think speaks to maybe the lack of funds. And so nobody wants to spend a lot on a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers have always had lower fees. And so Arsenal want like 30 million for Ramsdale, but Newcastle probably want to spend like 15, like they said originally. Now, the cooling interest thing for me is always code speak for negotiations, if I'm honest. We've seen so many people use the cool interest thing and then circle back around. I still think Newcastle want Ramsdale, but Arsenal want more than 30. Newcastle want to play 15. So you already know what's going to happen. We're going to come down to like 20. And that's how the deal will get done. That is my prediction. I think Newcastle and Ramsdale are a match made in heaven. Passion, vibes, that kind of stuff. They would love him there. His energy would be perfect for them. He's still a young English goalkeeper, and Eddie Howe has worked with him in the past. So it's just the perfect fit. I know that Newcastle's board and Eddie Howe want 2 different things. Eddie Howe wants Ramsdale and their board wants somebody else. But I do think that I still feel like the interest is there and the fee will just end up being less. Now, if we end up with the 20 million fee, something around there, we have lost money on a player that was largely considered a relegation level goalkeeper that became a Champions League level goalkeeper that's English and young, and we will have lost money on him. That is poor. But that's kind of what I think is going to happen. So, no bidding war, I don't think, because I don't think Chelsea will want him. So yeah, I can see this one becoming a little bit of like an annoyance, the whole Ramsdale one, because, in the midst of us moving Raya into that number 1 position, there was a lot of toxicity and a lot of talking and a lot of shit. And so I do think that, like, because it wasn't a clean break the way that it probably should have been, that also adds to like should we be bringing in Ramsdale? I think if we wanted to move him on, we should have maybe tried to sell him last summer before we even tried to get in Raya. But really, we could have waited until this summer to move Aaron on. And this will sound weird coming from me because I was a big advocate of Raya, but I did always feel like the goalkeeper position needed to be fixed or it needed to be looked at, just not last summer. I was fully on board with us moving Ramsdale on. I just felt like we didn't need to do it as soon and we didn't need to do it as messily as we did. And we didn't really reap the rewards of it that we probably should have, right? Because it was too messy. We had a great defense, but we still didn't fix the things that needed to be fixed first. We made Raya and the goalkeeper situation a priority when all of us know that you can have kind of like as long as you can score goals and you're dominant going forward and you have a really solid midfield, what's going on behind that? We could have given up 10 more goals and done better this season. And that would have come from having the right pieces to be more inevitable further up the pitch. Our biggest issue this season was not like we could have kept the same conceding if we could have scored more goals, or scored goals in situations where we went goalless. We had too many games where we went goalless. And everybody knew this past summer that what we needed, Ramsdale was further down the priority list. Arsenal needed inevitability up front. We needed a striker or another attacker, and we definitely needed to replace Granit Xhaka. Beginning of the season was all trying to figure out the pieces of how to get Rice and Havertz and all of that working in a midfield that already kind of worked, but just needed a replacement for Xhaka. And then we went to places like Newcastle and Villa Park and could not score a goal. We had games at home where we didn't score. Do you know how wild that is to be shut out at home multiple times? West Ham shut us out, and Liverpool shut us out in the cup, and Aston Villa. That is way too many times. So we didn't really reap any reward from Raya coming in, because even though our defense got better, we did not solve the problems that are actually keeping us from winning the Premier League. It's not how many goals we concede. It's the games where we cannot put the ball in the back of the net. We're not ruthless enough. We can't go to the Etihad and nick a goal. We can't go to Newcastle when we're kind of under it and nick a goal. We can't score the numerous amount of chances that we had at Villa Park. Like, that is our problem, not conceding. Like, the conceding is almost like a symptom of not scoring, because we do this weird thing where we don't score in those first 20 minutes when we have all those chances, and then we just give up silly goals. So I just feel like Ramsdale could have been left to this summer. And if we would have waited this summer, I know we would have gotten the fee. But now that you've iced him out, he's a number 2, he hasn't played a lot, you're definitely not going to get the 30, 40 million that we should be getting for him. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, is that it was the priority of it didn't make sense. And we're coming to another summer where we still need that same stuff. We still need that inevitability in an attacker. We still need a midfielder to replace Granit Xhaka. And now we need one that can also replace Thomas Partey as well. Like, just get it done. But the decisions that you made have also made it's going to make it difficult for us to get the fees that we should be getting. And so, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Maggie says we can't lose money on Ramsdale. He only just signed a new deal. Edu said, hold my beer, because I'm going to lose money on Ramsdale. I like Edu, but until he beats the allegations, he can't sell. Blaze says Ramsdale needs to leave Arsenal. I don't want to hear any more Ramsdale versus Raya debates. Next season, Arteta already made his decision. Tashima says, did he play number 2 in cups? Foxy says Ramsdale isn't even a clear upgrade on Pope, not even to spend silly money on him. Much better options available. Ramsdale was a very good goalkeeper. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't think Pope is that good. I think Ramsdale still can Ramsdale is still really young in his goalkeeper career too. So, yeah. But I can understand Newcastle fans not wanting him, because we'll be kicking him out the door. Like, if it was a player that we still liked, you guys would take him. Like, trust. Yo-Yo says Arteta, Edu ultimately messed up the midfield reshuffle. Kai moving to 9 said it all. Keenan says, have we talked about Ferdy Kadioglu? That guy would fit our system perfectly. We haven't talked about it. We can probably talk about that tomorrow. Kind of want to have like a defensive kind of conversation, who should go, who should stay, where everybody should play, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll kind of do that maybe in the next couple of days. Tashima says we only need one more win for the league. We did only need one more win for the league, but you guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just like the season before this one, our problems were pretty similar, I think our problem was more like we found ourselves in a place where we weren't ready. We were too far ahead too early, and it was just like, wow, like this is too much. This season, it wasn't like it was too much. It was like the season prior, we scored in like every single game. And if we went behind, we could score. We scored a lot in the first 15 minutes of games. We scored in almost every single game. There was rarely any times where we didn't score a goal. If we went behind, we can come back. And we had that like inevitability to score that goal, even if it was like the 99th minute. This season, the difference is that we didn't find ourselves in a position that we didn't feel like we would be in. It was that we didn't have that first 15 minutes take the game away from them. We couldn't come back when we went down. And there were just too many times where we just couldn't lock our fucking ankle and put the ball in the back of the net. And that's something that we already earmarked the summer that we needed, was players that could help us do that, replacing Xhaka. So it was only one game, but the fact that we had so many games at home where we didn't even score a goal, to me, it doesn't make, like, you're not winning the league if you're a team that gets shut out at home. Like, you don't. Like, that's not a trait of a title winning team. It's just not. Let's see. Mulo says, I think what we need this window is to find a solution to the left side of the team. We need to move on from Martinelli. That's something that I want to talk about on, like, that. To me, that's like a whole show, like a whole hour just talking on that itself. I already have the thumbnail made, by the way, about the Martinelli thing, because I do think we could sit here for time. So if you guys, we actually, tomorrow, if you guys want to, we could do just a left side show. We could just do a whole left side show. This whole idea that the left-hand side, how it impacted Martinelli. We can talk about Martinelli. We can talk about left back, because really that's the main thing that we need to look at this summer. Left back, left center mid, and left forward, and then we can also weave the Marcus Rashford stuff in there too. So actually we can do the left sided conversation tomorrow for sure. Because I think it's overdue. I think it's overdue. So yeah, but Newcastle cooled their interest on Ramsdale. I still think that there's interest there. Hopefully, we can come to some sort of agreement for him. But I'm just like, come on, like 20 million, like at least get what you paid back. Like at least that, I think that would be at the bare minimum what would be required. So let me go look at the poll now. For those of you guys who had just joined, you guys are probably like, what is this poll? We're going to do a classic rewatch on Thursday at 8 p.m. UK time. So after the show, we will just all head on over to TIFO. And for those of you guys that want to do the classic rewatch, I think it'll be super fun because it'll give us a break from transfers. I know some of you guys are like like all the shows being about transfers kind of like is an annoyance. And I get why, because a lot of times it's just like nonsense. And so to break that up, what we could do, or what we're going to do, is do a classic watch along for a game that has like the full matches on like YouTube. And so I found like 10 or 11. So we'll just do kind of like one a week. And they'll be on Thursdays, because I know on Fridays y'all gonna be outside. So Thursday is gonna be the day that we're gonna do it. So and the poll is actually really close. The 2020 FA Cup final is 2% more than Arsenal versus Newcastle in the Invincible season. So get your votes in now, because I will like literally have the thumbnail and everything ready, and the link and everything for the watch along done tomorrow. So if you would rather watch the Invincible game, vote now, because as of now, we're going to be watching that FA Cup final, which will be fun. I love watching that game. It's just fun going back in the memory. Zitch says, it's nice to watch a match we know we win at the end. Zitch says, imagine touching grass. Tashima says, Rashford isn't coming. No chance they would sell to us. Aha says, hey, Jess, do you think we need to beat City home and away next season? Not necessarily. I feel like to me, the formula is still and will always be City really should have lost the league this season. And the reason why I say that is because they beat all the small teams, but they didn't really keep up the, make sure you don't lose to, or like they kind of did, but kind of didn't. But like, I feel like they didn't beat anybody in the top 6 enough. We did. But our problem is we didn't do the other thing, which is beat the small teams. We have to beat everybody outside of the top 4, top 6, whatever you want to call it, the harder teams, so now that would probably include, like, let's just say Villa, and let's say Chelsea and Spurs, like, and Man United. Let's just say those are the teams. Everybody outside of that, we need to beat home and away. And then the teams that are fighting against us in the title and teams that are harder to beat, our traditional top 6, our rivals, those teams, you can't you can't go away and lose. So you have to get something away from home, and you have to beat them at home. We didn't beat Spurs at home. That was, but that wasn't like the worst thing. And we also didn't beat Chelsea away, which also wasn't the worst thing. The thing that we messed up on was Fulham away and home. Those are the things that messed us up. If you had those 4 points, let's say, or you got the 2 points plus the 3 away, that's 5. We were going to win the league. So, and we could have done everything like we did this season, which wasn't beating City home and away. We went away to the Anfield and drew. We went away to Chelsea and drew. We Tottenham drew to us at home. Like all those things could have been exactly the same, and we would have won the league had we had just beaten a mid-table team home and away. That's it. That's really the difference. So we don't have to beat City home and away. That's never been the formula. That's never been the formula. So yeah, Yo-Yo says, didn't City win the title without laying a glove on the so-called top 6? Yeah, and that's why I'm saying they really shouldn't have won the league. They really didn't do the other stuff. Really, we, as much as I don't want to say it, we didn't throw it away, but we really just needed to not be so bad against the lower teams. The Fulham games in particular. As much as people were like, it was the Villa game, it was the Etihad. No, it fucking wasn't. It was Fulham home and away. That's a mid-table team that we drop nasty points to. That's like 5 points right there. So it's never really about the big games. You have to always be competitive in those and make sure, to me, the rule is don't lose against your rivals. But the smaller teams, you have to wipe those away. We did everything that we were supposed to do. We scored enough goals. We didn't concede a lot of goals. The goals that we conceded were less. We scored a lot of goals. We won a lot of games, but we had too many losses in the column. I think City lost 3 games and we lost 5. That's way too many. And to me, the points where we really dropped was those Fulham games. Them Fulham games, because that is it. You cannot even justify dropping those points. Fulham at home, those were when we saw the schedule. Fulham was in those first 3 games that we had against we had Forest, Fulham, and Crystal Palace, I think. And those were that's a good start to the season because we don't have to play a top 6 team until the 4th game. By the time we got to a top 6 team, we had already dropped points to Fulham. So it was just the way that it started was just nonsense. So to me, the mid-table team that we dropped 5 points, or whatever, we dropped 5 points to them. Even West Ham, at home was bad, so those are the ones for me. So, we don't have to beat City home and away. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Let's see. I saw a couple more comments before we get out of here. Boy says December killed our season. Blaze says we need just to be perfect and win the last 10 games to win the league. There are only 3 managers who beat Pep to win the league. Mourinho with 100 points at Real Madrid, Conte at 93 points, and Klopp with 99 points. Also, yeah, we didn't get to the 90 points, which we still have a ways to go. Because it's not just the league. It's the fact that we're still not competitive in domestic cups. We still have layers to this that we still need to add. And that's why the summer window is so important. Tony Bloom says Arsenal will hit high 90s next season with the correct recruitment. Recruitment is so important. Philip says Timber plus Partey were 2 of our best 3 passers, and we lost them right at the start. Took us half a season to figure out how to dominate teams without them. That's when we lost the title. Fair enough. No One's in the Fate says there's always next year. Gunnar says in the CDN Rockies, Newcastle was what killed it for me. Newcastle was an interesting one because to me, Newcastle wasn't a game that I felt was one that we threw away because we didn't even create anything. No Odegaard and Nketiah up front, basically just Like there was just nothing. Like, did Saka even play that game? I don't even know if Saka played that game. Let me see. Yeah, Saka did play. And Kedia was up front. Havertz was playing Odegaard's position. We defended really well. Obviously, we conceded that one goal, but again, like one of our biggest problems this season to me too was that our defense always bailed out the attack, but the attack never bailed out the defense. And in that game, we were so smelly going forward. We couldn't create any chances. We had like one shot on goal, and we limited them to like one shot on goal, but we also only had one shot on goal, and that was just like outrageously bad. So yeah, like Newcastle wasn't one for me because I knew we'd struggle without Odegaard anyway. It was really like the Fulham. No, it's the Fulham, you know. So yeah, but guys, we have gone through everything on the agenda. On Thursday at 8 p.m. UK time, we will watch the 2020 FA Cup final together. I'll send you guys all the link before we get started, but it'll be on TIFO as well. So, like I showed you guys earlier, we're working with TIFO, and they basically created a platform literally just for people that want to do watch alongs, and it's been really cool doing content with them. The season ended too quickly because we had only really been working with them for like 2 months, but this is the where you guys will see where the watch alongs are, and I'll actually just put the link in the chat so that you guys can save it yourself. Like anytime I do a watch along, it'll be all of the watch alongs will be on here. So that link that I just put in the chat, that's where all the watch alongs, like the home of all the watch alongs. So the ones that I did in the past are there, and then they'll show up in here in upcoming. So for the summer, before we get to preseason, when we're doing these classic watch alongs, they'll be on here. So the show that we do tomorrow and the day after, I'll make sure that it reminds you guys, but just have it on your calendar that at 8 p.m. UK time, we'll do the classic rewatch of our FA Cup final against Chelsea in 2020. So make sure you guys are there. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And yeah, we will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys. Oh, Righto Boy, sorry. Right before we go, I seen this. Okay. Righto Boy says, if Partey is going, Bruno G becomes a must for the summer. Thank you so much for your super chat. We're going to have many conversations about midfield, so don't worry. You guys know. But tomorrow, I think we should talk about the left-hand side, specifically Martinelli. So just know we'll talk about that, and then we'll move into more of a midfieldy conversation once we get some more links. But thank you so much for your super chat. I do agree that we need a big midfield signing, whether it's Bruno G or not. So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.